We are back on the beautiful game after a Champions League, after a week of amazing Champions League quarterfinals, second leg. It did not disappoint. Some games were greater than others, but it's a Champions League. Every game had its own tone, but some had better tone than others. A Champions League that saw giants go to sleep, put to sleep, and saw giants that were awakened. This Champions League gave us drama, some unfair calls, some fair calls, but that's football. That's a lot of things that attract the viewers in general. When there's drama, there's viewers. If there's no dramas, there is no viewers. That's just typical thing of football. But a Champions League that did not disappoint, a Champions League that makes me say, like Patri Evra says, I love this game. We have a Atletico that fought with grit. We have a Real Madrid, Bayern that saw two big ones go at it with a very, very exciting match. We saw a PSG that just are doing their thing. PSG that you can say have been on the same tone in the Champions League as last season. We have a Arsenal against a Sporting that an Arsenal that due to the hype they are favorites due to what they have been trying to achieve for the past 2 years. They are favorites, but an Arsenal that they just grind out a 1-0 overall in this two-leg game quarterfinals, but it was not disappointing overall. Yes, there were some unfair things, but that's football. That's the human error. That's why we have referees. It makes it more dramatic, more exciting, whatever fits to those that want to put their mind and judge or give their opinion about the Champions League and what we saw this quarterfinal second leg or the quarterfinals in general. But for those that don't know, esto es Pase Ambidiestro, Ambidextrous Pass, Fútbol Honestamente, Soccer, Football Honestly. And we are going to dive into this Champions League quarterfinal second leg. A Champions League that, again, it did not disappoint. For some teams, it only brought more to the surface some of their problems, some of their ongoing problems. But for some, there's always next season. But for some, they just keep repeating that and they are not able to go past a certain round in this Champions League. Some clubs have to stop, look, reassess, and start again from scratch. But we're going to dive into this Champions League. A Champions League that started with Atletico de Madrid against Barcelona, and a game that was played at Metropolitano, Atletico de Madrid's stadium. A game where Barcelona won 2-1 as visitors, but on the aggregate, Atletico Madrid win 3-2 in a match that defined by Simeone's style, the resilience. Atletico Madrid weathered an early storm from a rejuvenated Barcelona to clinch their first semi-final spot in 9 years. While Lamine Yamal and Ferran Torres gave the Blaugrana hope with 2 early goals, the momentum died when Eric Garcia saw red in the 79th minute, following a controversial VAR review, and Lookman's vital strike proved the difference on aggregate and ensuring that Atletico greedy defensive identity triumphed over Barcelona's flair. Firstly, Barcelona that is one of the very few teams playing that quality football that many teams have decided to abandon for the robotic system and game that we have today and we see across a lot of competitions, a lot of different leagues. And a Barcelona that tried hard. And as the game progressed, this Barcelona just looked stretched. They looked stretched, they looked tired, and in the end, they looked damaged by its own style of game. Flick has been trying to apply that high line. He has been trying to apply the high line. For those that watch Barcelona, for those that watch La Liga, Flick has been trying to apply the high line all year since the beginning of the season. And many times Barcelona see goals against themselves is due to the high line and players getting caught up and not being able to catch up with the opponent. And due to their highline strategy, you see players getting reds, players committing fouls, and it's understandable. Defenders try to play the highline, listen to their manager, but in reality, they're not able to execute it the way they should or the way that the manager sees it when he tries to apply it. And can the highline be applied? Of course, it can be done. Of course, it can be applied. Of course, it can be executed. In execution of a high line, you need certain qualities and certain requirements from the players. And, another last man that gets a red is just evidence of some ongoing high line problem that Barcelona have been trying to include in the game, but it's not coming out well. And Barcelona is great from the midfield up. I've been saying it since the beginning of the season. This is already the last stretch of the season in domestic football or in European football. This is the last stretch of the season. I've been saying it. Barcelona is great from the midfield up. They have quality from the midfield up. I keep saying it. I will keep saying it, and I will stick by it till, of course, it's evident that they either abandon the plan of the high line or they start executing it more precisely and more effectively. And at the same time, this brings the topic of certain players like Rafinha saying that the game was unfair and robbed. Was it robbed? Yeah, some can say that. Was it unfair? 100%. I do agree that it was unfair. I really do agree that it was unfair. After seeing the game in detail, both legs, was there reds that were not red? Yes. Or reds that were given that weren't supposed to be given? Yes. Were there penalties that were not given? Yes. And the other way around, penalties that shouldn't have been penalties. If there was, there was, and if there wasn't, there wasn't. But the game was unfair to a degree. Barcelona see themselves a little bit more on the damaged side of this game. And yes, there is evidence. Yes, Barcelona decided to put some complaints with UEFA and, report some of these unfair calls and you could say bad refereeing. And it hurts. It hurts to lose, but there's details of why there was a loss to a degree. It comes down onto the style of game Barcelona has. And at the same time, the referee, the officials do not help the cause because the game was not fully fair, you can say. At the end of the day, when you lose and you complain, everybody sees you as a sore loser. But when you actually pay attention to the details and look at it and follow and actually try to digest what went on, yes, there were things that did not help the cause. But Barcelona did harm to themselves due to their own style of game. Doesn't mean that their game has to change. Not necessarily. They just need to either execute their plan on the high line a little bit better, get those players that played on the defense to either communicate better, execute better. There's so many things that they can do better, yes. But the highlight has been one of the main reasons why this Barcelona see themselves being kicked out in the quarterfinal. And Barcelona has been on the UCL drought for 11 to 12 years. There's a deep problem in Barcelona when it comes to competing in the UEFA Champions League. Constantly being overtaken by other clubs when it comes to the quarterfinals. That's where Barcelona have been struggling in the quarterfinals. There has been years where Roma kicked them out, Inter kicked them out, PSG kicked them out. So there is something more to assess in this team. Yeah, but in this game, both legs, unfair calls, your game style, it doesn't help the cause. So Barcelona just sees themselves going out. And when you complain, when you lose, you are often looked at as a sore loser. But there is evidence to back up why Barcelona are complaining. Some might not like it. Some might like it because they support Barcelona. But I am a football fan, and there was unfair calls. There were things that were red. There were things that were yellow. There was penalties that should have been given or fouls that should have been called. And in the end, the referee is the one who can either affect the game against you or for you. And at the end, that just becomes unfair for what is the neutrality of the game itself. But at the same time, when it comes to Atletico, they grinded out this win. They play with that Simeone style, with that Simeone identity, and a player that deserves the props that I think is high key underrated is Antonio Griezmann. He is a huge piece of Atletico's Madrid puzzle. Props to him and to what he contributes on the field, and for being a baller. That does not He does not get the recognition he deserves, and for how he sacrifices his characteristics of the game to always help this team defend and come out on top. And Atletico did what a lot of people predicted that they would do. They played a counterattack. They had a low block. They played through a player like Lookman, and Lookman that he added danger to those counters that he found himself constantly on a 1v1. And it's a player that he can give you width, take some speed. It's not afraid on the 1v1s. And yes, Barcelona win this game, but they allowed the grit and game plan of Atletico to be part of the game itself. And Cholo has been known for having that certain quality in his football, that he has a defensive approach, but he now has been adding players that are good on the 1v1s and physical center forward and agile players on the ball that still defend to help the team in what has changed this Atletico as of lately. So Simeone executed his game. He has added some pieces that add different dynamics, but they still stick with the mentality of helping the team defend. And that's a Cholo Simeone DNA, a DNA that has become an Atletico de Madrid DNA. But in this one, Atletico de Madrid go through, and Barcelona stays another year with no Champions League trophy. A decade has gone by and Barcelona is not able to reach a Champions League final. Then after that, we have a Liverpool against a PSG. In this second leg, Liverpool lost 2-0 against PSG. A Liverpool that played at Anfield and lost to PSG the same exact way they lost in Parc des Princes. The aggregate score for this specific match was 4-0 in favor of PSG. PSG silenced the Anfield crowd with a performance of pure clinical efficiency, thumping Liverpool's for the second time in a week to march into the third consecutive semi-final. Ousmane Dembele was the undisputed star, hunting the Reds with a ruthless brace that included a 91st minute strike to put the tie completely out of reach. And even with Mo Salah on the field and coming off the bench to try to spark a type of comeback for Liverpool, Liverpool's lack of finishing left them empty-handed against a PSG side that looks increasingly like the favorites to lift the trophy, because this is almost, if not the same exact PSG from last season, is almost the same PSG from last season. And unfortunately, for those that watch this game, for Liverpool fans out there, we know that Ekitike has had an Achilles rupture and he will miss the French. Apologies. He will be missing the World Cup with the French national team. Speedy recovery to Ekitike, a player that added a dynamic to this Liverpool, a player that had to fight for his starting position, but in the end he came on top. But now he sees a season-ending injury and speedy recovery to Ekitike. But overall, this Liverpool tried to play and create pressure and be aggressive, but PSG did not allow it. Second year in a row, and Liverpool this time were not even allowed to see one goal go past PSG goal line. And Slot is walking on a wobbly plank, you could say. His future is more likely questionable than secure with Liverpool. Does he deserve to be let go? For what he has achieved, no. And only in 2 seasons. First season he wins the Premier League, and this season he goes trophyless. But, for what Liverpool require and want, then yes, he should be let go. But another season, or at least half a season, with his acquisitions from this season in the summer, he can just either change the system that he's playing with and see how things go after that. Then a decision can be made. But Liverpool want more than what they got this season, and it's understandable. You're a big club. You're one of the giants in Europe. You're one of the giants in England. So it's understandable. Liverpool didn't have the best season this year. Their game plan changed this season due to the new acquisitions, some players leaving. Some might say that it wasn't the best decisions that they made. But that's what happens when you let go of very important players, difference makers, and you acquire new talent that has to adapt not only to your game, but to what is required from them in this specific league. You have to adapt your game, and sometimes for some comes easy, for others it doesn't. But Liverpool this year will go on a drought, no trophies. Slot, I believe, still needs to be left alone and let this Liverpool team start from scratch again next season. And if he doesn't seem as secure in the middle of the season, then he should be let go next season. But on the other hand, you have a Luis Enrique that he comes out as humble, if you ask me. He knows what his team is capable of doing, and he also knows what can happen in football. And at the same time, he also knows what Liverpool is capable of doing at their best. A PSG that they have quality on the ball with its organization, ball movement, and talent of top tier competitors who seem to be in the Champions League final this year again. And yes, this PSG is one of those teams with the most goals scored this Champions League season, which is 38. Premier League clubs, on the other hand, they seem to be having a struggling time in the UEFA Champions League. They go to the competition but cannot compete. The Premier League clubs can compete in their league, but once Champions League comes, their football is not at the stage of a Champions League competition. In their league, they have such fantastic competition, but the game they play on how it's played does not translate to a Champions League competition, and often leaves English clubs stunned and asking questions on how are we part of the best league, but we cannot compete in European football. There's only one English club after 6 English clubs being in this round of 16 and moving on from the round of 16 to round of 8, now to the quarterfinals. Is just one club left from 6 clubs. There's only one club left, and that, as we know, is Arsenal. But English clubs do have an issue to look at and assess on why they are not able to go far in Champions League. But then we move on and we go to, in my opinion, the best game of this quarterfinals second leg. Bayern Munich against Real Madrid at the Allianz Arena in Germany, in Munich. A game that ended 4-3. A game that on the aggregate score was 6-4. The Allianz Arena witnessed a breathtaking Champions League classic, where Bayern's relentless pressure finally broke the spirit of the 15-time champions in a chaotic 7-goal shootout. And Real Madrid initially looked destined for another miracle behind a spectacular Arda Guler brace, but the game just shifted irrevocably when Eduardo Camavinga was sent off in the 87th minute for a second yellow. And despite the visitors being 100% clinical with 3 goals from the 3 shots on target, late daggers from Luis Diaz and Michael Olise just secured a 6-4 aggregate win for Bayern, and reportedly leaving Álvaro Arbeloa's managerial future in doubt. And it's more than decided that he will not be the manager next season. And Mbappe has set a new record as the first players to score 10 away goals in a single Champions League season. Vinicius recorded his 32nd assist of the Champions League history, looking like he would reach Ronaldo's record of 42 assists in the Champions League overall. And then you have Michael Olise and Vini that are also tied with the most assists in the season, which is 8. Then you have Mbappe that has the most goals in this Champions League with 15, followed by Kane that has 12 goals, who can catch up in the next 2 games of the semi-final Champions League. Then you have Bayern, who is up there tied with PSG for the most goals scored in a Champions League campaign. At the moment, is 38 for these 2 clubs, for PSG and Bayern Munich. This game, Bayern against Real Madrid, second leg. The game reflects all the things that have been going on wrong this season for Real Madrid, and when under pressure, true colors do come out. You can ask anybody out there that has been through things, whether it's in sports, life, or just situations. When individuals are under pressure, true colors do come out. And Real Madrid brought in Real Madrid brought the intensity, but not the defensive and organization discipline to stay in the game. Arda's contribution to this game shows that he's ready for big games, but he needs to contribute more defensively. There was parts in the game, not only in the second leg, but in the first leg, where Arda will track the player and keep following, but he will not win physically or try to challenge physically. It's a part of his game characteristic. Maybe not, but you are another player in the field. You have to feel comfortable sometimes getting a little bit rough, or you can say a little bit dirty. However you want to take it, but sometimes you have to sacrifice and actually challenge, so you are not put in a predicament of danger that can go against you. Vini, he stays complaining and not helping the cause. Real Madrid needs to reassess their game plan and make sure players do their job. Too much quality that is not clicking. Too much quality that is not clicking. It seems more and more evident that the team is missing what the team is missing, but only directors, staff, management, if it's allowed from the director spot for management to make changes, because they are the only ones above the players. And it's not a change of attitude, but a change of game organization and discipline. And then this brings the Camavinga red card topic. It's unfortunate, but his mistake for picking the ball is just, he shouldn't have done that. Best thing to do for him, it was just leave the ball alone, leave the situation alone. You did what you did. Walk as far as you can from the referee, because players, the opponents will always try to convince the referee, the officials, oh, it's a yellow, oh, it's a yellow. And guess what? If you already have a yellow, oh, you should give him a second so he can get a red. Oh, that was a yellow, so he can get out. This will always happen in any sport. Any sport, the opponent would try to convince the officials if you did something and for you to be punished. The first yellow, there was no need for a foul Musiala. Just track him. But in the heat of the game, you know, some players do not have a clear mind on how to approach the situation. Some say this might be his some say that this might be Camavinga's last season. Personally, his performances have not been the best. I do agree with that. He has not been at his best form. But I do not think that Camavinga is the first player to look at if a cleanup is going to happen in this Real Madrid. I believe that there's other players that you can look at based on their attitude, their actions, and their commitment that should be looked at and evaluate if they should stay or be let go. Real Madrid are missing a leader with authority like Ramos. Valverde, he's a great leader. He's a great leader. He sacrifices for the team. He plays for the team. He shows that he's there for the team. But Valverde is too humble. He does not have the attitude of asking for more from his teammates, to be more committed to the team and not to themselves. We've seen when this Real Madrid have players like Ramos that he will often tell players to be more committed to the team, and he will get players straight telling them what to do, what not to do. A captain is a leader who leads by example, is committed, plays collectively, and is the first one to step. Valverde does that. He does step up. He is committed. He plays collectively. He gives everything for the club, but he does not step up and has the guts, in a way, to tell his other teammates, hey, cut it out. Let's play for the club. Let's do this as one. Let's play collectively. Great player, great commitment, a leader, but still needs to learn a little bit more, if you ask. And he leads by example, but needs to include a little bit more in his attitude to tell the players to play for the club and be a collective person for the sake of the club. And it is evident that some of these players might get along in this Real Madrid squad. It's evident that some of these players might get along, but they aren't playing collectively for the club. 2 years of such a lethal attack that shows that to be still in the end. Again, I have said it before, I'm saying it now. Mbappe, you cannot take away from Mbappe that he's lethal. He's a world-class player. Every game of Mbappe, depending on the game, is different. His attitude, his commitment is different every game. Vinicius, you could say the same thing the different way. I don't know if people might understand me. But Vinicius, ever since Mbappe came, you could say he has gone under a shadow. And these are players that want to be the star of the team. And that's exactly what is wrong with Real Madrid. They have too many stars, too many egos that want to be the star of the team. Yes, back then you had Ronaldo, you had Benzema, you had Bale. Ego of, I want to take it, I want to be the one to do it. That's what you see now in this Real Madrid. That's exactly what you see in this Real Madrid. There was plays against Bayern in this Real Madrid that Mbappe could have played a simple pass open to Vinicius, Or even when Vinicius had the ball, he could have played a simple pass to Jude Bellingham. But instead, what happened? Vinicius got mad and told Bellingham to shut up. That is not a collective attitude to help the club. If you want to be a star or you want to be the one to solve things, yes, some games you will be able to do that. But in games of this caliber, of this magnitude, you are better off playing collectively than when you want to play singularly. If you want to be the one to take the ball, take 3 players and take it a goal, I believe that it's better for you to play indoor, to play 5v5s. In this type of professional football, 11v11, there's no room for that. You cannot take the ball all the way from defense, bring it up and score and keep doing that. There's no such thing. In indoor, yes, you can perhaps do that often, many times, but you didn't have that. But this Real Madrid has a problem of too many stars. Either a change of personality has to happen or players need to be let go. Whatever players the team decides on letting go, that depends on what the team sees, what the directors, the staff sees happening in this Real Madrid. Too many stars, too many egos to feed. And in the end, this is a sport that requires the collective contribution of every single player. The 11 players on the field that represent that crest. But then we're going to go to Bayern. Bayern, that is just a complete team, in my opinion. A team that understands how to handle the tempo. Mistakes happen, as we saw with Neuer. But Bayern is a complete team that can make a comeback in the game. They saw Madrid lose a player and they decided to go for the kill. Bayern might not be the most stable team defensively, but guess what? They score goals. They will, and they are willing to score a lot of goals. Those 3 attackers in the front, they are lethal. Olise can create such unbalanced threat on that right wing. Luis Diaz, same thing. Quick players, change of pace, can break through lines. They can dribble, they can shoot. And Kane, I believe that today Kane is the reference of a number 9, of a complete number 9. Has great touch, has great dribble, has great shot, and that just adds more to his qualities of being a threat. Bayern overall, top 3, lethal. Defensively, they might not be the most steady team, but they will score a lot of goals. And that's what has helped this Bayern and helped this Bayern go through all the way to the semifinals as we speak. You cannot give this front 3 for Bayern an inch to let them feel comfortable. And even when being marked, defenders have to often be conscious of how they challenge these Bayern attackers. Yes, you could say that Mendy had Olise quiet, but as soon as Real Madrid loses Camavinga, Olise did what is very, very known of his game. It's a characteristic of his game. He would dribble on that right, try to cut left, get on the edge of the box on the 18th yard, you could say, and either pass it or take a shot. The more space you give him, the more Olise will be willing to take a shot. In football, a lot of things are predetermined. It's just how awakened or how aware you are of a player doing such thing, and how fast can you defend, how fast can that forward attack. But in football, the movements are repetitions. It's just how fast can you execute the movement and how fast can the defender snap to not let you do the movement that you are going to do. But Harry Kane, Luis Diaz, Olise, a threat. Bayern might not be the most steady team defensively, but they will score a lot of goals. Then we move on to this last game of this quarterfinals second leg. Arsenal against Sporting, a game that just ended on a stale 0-0. And on aggregate, Arsenal win 1-0. It was far from the flowing attacking masterclass fans expected at the Emirates, of course, but Arsenal showed the pragmatic maturity of a side ready to conquer Europe by grinding out a scoreless draw. Sporting will head back to Lisbon, feeling they deserve more after creating the better chances. Yet they simply couldn't find a way past the Gunners' defense that has now reached back-to-back semifinals for the first time. And the stalemate preserved the slim 1-0 lead for the first leg, settling up a tactical chess match against Atletico Madrid in the next round. And Arsenal, that has the most clean sheets, which is 8, followed by Tottenham, another English club, which is 6. And Arsenal looks stale, if you ask me. They look stale, creating a few dangerous opportunities that they did not execute, but not with a threat to win the game. And seeing a team like Arsenal against a PSG or Bayern, I do not think that they have the game plan or threat to grind out a win. Arsenal is the favorite due to the hype and for what they have been trying to do and achieve in the past few years, in the past 2 years, and they have gotten close. Yes, they have gotten close, but seeing other teams in this Champions League, I think they are not at the level of the competition of such clubs like PSG and Bayern. And in a way, I do think that Arsenal are very lucky that they are not facing a PSG or a Bayern in the semifinal. If Arsenal was facing PSG or Bayern in the semifinal, Arsenal would have suffered. PSG has way better ball movement, rotation, execution. Bayern have a way better threat than Arsenal. Again, Bayern might not be the most steady defensive team, but Bayern has a threat on their top 3 that when they click, they will make sure you feel the threat. They will make sure that you don't get to breathe. But Arsenal, I feel like the hype has gotten them all the way to this point. Yes, Arsenal is going to play against Atletico Madrid, and it will be a semifinal where both teams are going to grind out for a win. A team that, like Atletico, that plays very, very defensively, low block, and Arsenal, a team that they don't show much threat. They know how to move the ball around. Yes, they are steady on the defense to a degree. We will see how this game plays. But the Champions League semi-final first leg will take place on April 28, PSG against Bayern, and then on April 29, we'll be seeing Atletico against Arsenal. And the Champions League semi-final second leg will take place on May 5th, Arsenal against Atletico, and on May 6th will be Bayern against PSG. A Bayern against PSG is a final, if you ask me, due to how these two clubs are coming into this semi-final. For me, this would have been a better final, but this semi-final will feel and it will look like a final due to what these two clubs are doing in this current season in the Champions League, the rhythm they are coming with, and the game that they are expressing at the moment this season. And then Atletico against Arsenal will be a game again that will show grit, and these two teams will grind out a win. One very defensive team, low block. Another team that manages the ball well but doesn't show much attacking threat. Defensively steady, which is Arsenal. But Arsenal looks, and to me, it feels like they are on a stage of deflating. What do I mean by that? In the Champions League, if you look at the record, if you look in the Premier League, or they have lost. The last few games, they have either tied, and again, if Arsenal win against a Bayern or a PSG, I do not think they would have had the chance to do anything or make any difference. But I personally will be looking forward to this semi-final, both semi-finals, Bayern, PSG, two full attacking teams, one that manages the pressure well, one that has a great rotation, another team that has great attack, another team that has great pressure, great rotation. There's a lot of similarities between Bayern and PSG, and there's a lot of similarities between Atletico and Arsenal. But in the semifinals, let the best win. And like Patrice Evra says, I love this game. The quarterfinals did not disappoint. I only think and I stick by my opinion that Bayern PSG will look like a final. The beauty is that we get 2 legs. This is a 2-leg semifinal, and that game will look like a final. But this is all for today. Thank you for those that are always here. Eso es todo por hoy. And for those that don't know, esto es Pase Ambidiestro, Ambidextrous Pass, Fútbol Honestamente, Soccer, Football Honestly. And if you like the content, please follow, hit the like, and subscribe. Have a good one. Thank you all.